workplace where morale is low and concerns are ignored. The outlet painting this unflattering picture, quote, "People are thrown under the bus from the very top. There are short fuses and it's an abusive environment," said another person with direct knowledge of how Harris's office is run. "It's not a healthy environment and people often feel mistreated. It's not a place where people feel supported, but a place where people feel treated like bleep." And although much of the criticism is aimed at the VP's chief of staff, many of the sources are blaming Kamala Harris herself, saying the toxicity all starts from the top. The alleged mistreatment is a big difference from President Biden's promise to staffers.
I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot. On the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Harris's chief spokesperson, Symone Sanders, defended the VP and said people who made the claims are cowards. But this is not the first time Harris has been accused of fostering a bad work environment. In fact, Jesse, back during her presidential campaign, this letter was sent in as part of a resignation in which the staffer said, "This is my third presidential campaign, and I have never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly. It is not acceptable to me that we encourage people to move from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, only to lay them off with no notice, with no plan for the campaign, and without thoughtful consideration of the personal consequences to them." And around that time, there was a New York Times story that had 50 staffers quoted saying similar things.
Toxic femininity, in my opinion, Dana. And this isn't just like a low-level staffer that worked for Trump saying something that got overheard by Politico and sensationalized. This is 22 people talking to Politico, not a right-wing publication. So you know it's 10 times worse than it actually is. It sounds like a jailbreak or a cry for help. People are leaving. They have left. They're looking to get out of there. And it doesn't surprise me because the campaign imploded and now the VP's office is imploding. She is a very insecure person. She's riddled with insecurities, very defensive. And you see that when she's cackling like a wacko. But this is early for the disintegration of the VP's office. We're not even 6 months in, Dana, and the heat's not even on yet. Wait till the summer kicks in and you really see the high gas prices, the crime, and the immigration. It's going to really ramp up pressure on her. And the Biden White House recognizes the problem. They said that in the article, and they are concerned, quote unquote, about it. And that's why I think you see the attempt to raise the profile of Dr. Jill. She's now a policy wonk, a senior advisor. She's going to Tokyo to the Olympic Games. Kamala's sidelined for that. So look for a little of that backbiting between those two women. That should be fun to follow. Joe Biden has to be thinking, thank God it's not me, because that's the struggling puppet. He is having a hard time basically completing basic tasks. And as long as the pressure's on Kamala, I expect to see her getting set up for more failures as the year goes on.
Dagan, what about the suggestion that President Biden is, this is not me saying, this is others, that she is being set up to fail by being given really tough issues to have to deal with?
Well, she failed at her own presidential campaign running for the nomination. So this is something that she's used to and good at, and that's failing at tasks assigned to her. They did also put her not just in charge of the border and the immigration problem, but also in charge of efforts to protect voting rights. So in terms of disintegration, her potential for being the next president of the United States is disappearing. But I personally love Symone Sanders' comment. One of the lines from her was about, we're not making rainbows and bunnies all day. So she's in essence saying, we don't care about your delicate feelings. Our hostile workplace is okay because we're doing hard work. In essence, she's saying that, suck it up and buck up, Buttercup. We're doing God's work here. If you don't like it, go work for Jenny Granholm. I kind of like that attitude.
I like that attitude, too. It's maybe they hired a bunch of snowflakes in the VP's office, and they're all complaining.
Well, you know who's also tough is Tina Flournoy, her chief of staff. So she worked at Philip Morris and was very active. We published, Fox News did a memo from Flournoy saying, we're working with the USA to kill the Medicaid liability bills over smoking. That's how tough she was in the mid-90s. So.
And Harold, some people on her staff think that she's basically being held to a higher standard than anybody else, and that this is just not fair.
She probably needs some new staff members. Look, you don't take a job working for the president or the vice president thinking you're gonna get the proverbial 25 years, 4 years, obviously, I understand, and a gold watch. These are tough jobs. And you want smart people, tough people, people who can handle the back and forth, people who don't get afraid with a bad headline or tremble or rattle. And she probably needs to hire some new people. Look, some people have suggested she gets hard assignments. That's what the vice president gets. I've not heard the vice president complain about that. And we can be critical of other things about her, but I think it's unfair to be critical when these people work at the pleasure of the president. There's only one person at this table who had that honor. And when the president doesn't want you to work or vice president wants you to work for me anymore, you got to move on. So, this is not a grade about her performance as vice president, but I tend to agree with Simone Sanders, who I don't know very well. I tend to lean more towards what she's saying. Again, if there are allegations that they want to make about the workplace, they should make those allegations. But to come to work and say it's hard and that it's tough and that, gosh, how am I going to do this? You need new people. This is a real job. We got real challenges to stare down here.
The staff that talked to Politico, they didn't go to the HR department. They went to the media.
Yeah, and we talked about they used the phrase petition rhetoric. It's rhetoric that's deliberately intensifies behavior, so it feels important, and when you actually look at it, there's nothing there. So this is what you call the rhetoric of bullying, which is like, the workplace is abusive, it's not healthy, mistreatment and toxicity. When you actually drill down into that, it's like, well, he didn't say hello to me in the elevator. Right? It's like stuff like that. And it's like, you know what? That kind of rhetoric sets me off and makes me think it's a bunch of whiny brats. Her office doesn't suffer from a moral intense atmosphere. It suffers from a bunch of really fragile babies.
A lot of them.
Yeah. And also we have to be fair because this type of story was the main entree on CNN when Trump was president, right? It was all this anonymous blather that sounds exactly like this. Every day, there was this, someone says X, somebody's having a tantrum. It was like, this is the low-hanging fruit for petty people. So she might actually be a bad boss. She might even be a bad vice president. But once you're a boss, this is what happens. And I'm defending all bosses here because somebody has to speak out for people who constantly get backbiting weirdos upset because, oh my God, shut up.
Nice.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I'm sure they love the imitation of them.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, up next, as crime surges, one liberal city is...
The country faces a major crime wave. One liberal city's solution is to go after and punish law-abiding gun owners. San Jose, California, approving a plan that would charge residents who legally own firearms for the cost of criminal gun violence. It includes an annual fee and would force people to buy liability insurance coverage. And if residents don't comply, you ready? They will confiscate your gun. Greg, you've looked into this. Totally illegal, right?
Absolutely. I'm a legal expert on guns, and they could just come and take mine. It'll be fun for everybody. The idea of calling it gun insurance is really clever because your argument could be well, there's car insurance. Why can't there be gun insurance? Well, it's because car insurance doesn't require you to cover other people's accidents, right? So this doesn't make any sense. It's absurd on its face. Law-abiding gun owners, by their definition, getting a gun makes them, they're not targets for criminals. Less target for criminals. But then they become targets for liberals.
Right.
But it's a fair trade-off. It's like every day they come up with a stupid idea and we have to talk about it, but it's not going to happen. Remember, all the crime is caused by bad people with stolen guns in cities where politicians put these thugs back on the street before the next victim is done at their shift in Chinatown. So we know how to solve that. We have these task forces that take guns off the street. You got to get that out there. Bring back stop and frisk. Lock up the thugs with guns, problem solved.
So many things wrong with this, Harold. Just one of them that Greg touched on, the part about how you go about confiscating someone's gun.
It's probably not going to withstand.
That's the Beto O'Rourke school of thought.
The other reality is everyone's entitled to own a gun under the Second Amendment. You're not entitled to own a car, so you don't have to have insurance with it, which is why this thing is going to have an issue.
So that was a better way of putting it.
So many holes to poke in this argument.
Praise Jesus, you said that.
But I give them credit for this. I think when we try to reset and imagine and reimagine ways to deal with a challenge and a problem, that's what they're doing. This is not the way to do it. I've said before, and I'll say it again, the ghost gun issue, which the president's going after, is a huge, huge part, because those stolen guns, someone had to have their guns stolen. Now, if you buy 100 guns and all of a sudden all of them are stolen, something might be fishy and funny about what you're doing.
Right.
And how these guns, again, I've said it over and over again, you can't get a fresh apple, a good book, a dental visit in a lot of these neighborhoods where these people are finding, these kids are finding guns. We have to keep trying, and I give them credit for trying, but this is not going to withstand a legal challenge.
Well, I've been to the neighborhoods you're talking about. You can get apples, Harold. Yeah, you can definitely get apples.
But inside the apples are guns.
All right. What about you, Dagan? This does not ring true to you, I'm sure.
Inside the apple or ammo is ammo, which is extremely in very short supply right now. This is left-wing performance art. It's liberal theater coming from literally the richest city in America. So their message is only wealthy people and rich people are allowed to own guns, those people who can afford the insurance and the fees on the gun. So this is actually Jim Crow. You put the burden on lower income individuals. They can't, they're not allowed to defend themselves. Lower income communities, neighborhoods, high crime areas, communities of color. That's what's so disgusting. The reason it's theater is because these jackasses on the city council clearly have bigger political ambitions. So what they're going to do is have all these gun rights groups pay for the legal fees when they get their pants sued off of them over this law, and then they're going to use it for public relations. But it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a great point. Again, I've made none of them, but I'll summarize all of them.
You're not supposed to. You're leading the segment.
Get it right. Thank gosh. It
Would
is
you
a
like
really
me to ask you a question?
a war, please don't, on the middle class, though, because the middle class are already struggling with, I don't know, gas prices, all the other insurance they have to pay for. You're talking about sending your kids to college. That's not cheap. And now you're going to have to take out a policy. Another policy on guns? No.
Well, it also is, the Democrats say they want to talk about root causes. Like, again, this is not doing it. If you're trying to go around the Second Amendment, it doesn't work. So it's not going to hold up in court. It is a waste of time. And right nearby, in Oakland, California, the city council wants to take away $18 million of the police budget. And I'm not sure how that would go over in Northern California, but except for the police chief says it's going to be very difficult for them to be able to do any of their jobs to respond to calls, including gun crime.
Greg, if someone came to your house and asked you if you had an insurance policy on your firearm and you said no, and they said, well, we're going to have to confiscate that weapon, what would you do?
I have to go back to one of those great films, Silence of the Lambs, where I would always ask the person to come inside. I'd say, come on in, can I make you some tea? And I would be incredibly, incredibly gracious. And then they would wake up days later wondering where they are, chained.
In your basement.
In my basement.
Okay, because that's the fallacy of all of these gun confiscation arguments, is that who is going to be in charge of knocking on doors and confiscating guns? Not a single government official is going to raise their hand and say, I want to be in that department. Not even the ATF would do that.
Right. This is why it's garbage. This whole thing is absolutely just hot garbage. But it places the lotion in the basket, Greg.
Yes.
It's absurd political gamemanship. What was that?
Yeah.
Have you seen that film? It's rated R, Dana. I don't know. Are you allowed to watch that?
I don't even know what they're talking about.
I don't know either. But
Silence of the Lambs.
I like the idea of applying insurance to areas where there is none. Because that's kind of interesting. Could you have children insurance? If your kids turn out, if your kids do something really bad.
Oh, I could buy a policy on the twins.
Yes, so that let's say your kids do something really stupid. You don't want to be responsible for their stupidity.
You actually can get that.
Really?
Yeah, if they're under the age of 18, I think that would be your broad liability coverage that you have through your homeowner's insurance. I don't know that, but I maybe kind of
Sounded great though.
Can you get getting fired insurance?
You can take out a policy on a
unemployment
child that if they flame out professionally, it's like a workers' comp thing. They're unable to function in society, and I think you could get them paid $40,000 a year, no taxes.
There you go.
How do I know that? Don't ask. Let's go to the next one. Is the Air Force getting soft with its new
The Air Force making some big changes to its physical fitness test. The standard one used to include push-ups, sit-ups, and running a mile and a half. But soon candidates will have options. Instead of running, they can walk. Push-ups can be replaced with holding themselves up in that position and doing alternate arm lifts. And they can do planks instead of sit-ups. Dana, the military commanders in China are laughing at us.
Well, I can imagine that the recruitment office is telling their higher-ups, like, we can't find anybody that's going to be passing this test, so we got to figure out something to do. And do they really need to be able to run a mile and a half? Well, okay, maybe not for some. However, Joey Jones sent me a note this morning after we did the show on Newsroom, and he said that it's not about looking good. It's about being physically fit to the point that you will need to be able to either run if you need to, or he said he would not have survived if he had not been physically fit when he sacrificed both of his legs in that bomb blast. So he said that for him, that was a matter of his survival. And that's why the physical fitness test is important. It's not just about being able to fit into your jeans.
Jesse, are you going to do the plank? Or are you going to do the...
I'm surprisingly strong at planking. I had to do it when I hurt my back, so I can plank for about 2 minutes. Very good form, but this is not what this is about.
Walk the plank. That's what I'd like to see you do right now.
Yeah, you're about to do it. I heard your talking points already. I do see the irony in an overpaid middle-aged man who talks for a living on his keister, criticizing the armed forces for their strength and conditioning requirements. So I just want to say thank you to the men and women first for protecting us. With that said...
Now it gets dark.
Here we go.
No, I'm kidding. They need to, it's the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
So they need to fly fast, not run fast. And I agree with Dana. They got to get recruits. Maybe they have to lower some standards. That is fine. But it does strike me as a little weak that this is happening. And I feel like I should not say much else because I don't want to say anything that might get me into any trouble.
Especially before the holiday weekend.
Right. Because then the next day when I'm not,
Rearrange.
I'm not saying boo about the Air Force. The Thunderbirds Herald took me up, and I have pulled 9 Gs, and I have never been more sick in my entire life. I was sick for like 12 hours. I was actually laying on the tarmac, taking a nap in the sun. What say you?
That's the best question ever.
Your first question to Dana is that the generals in China and Russia and North Korea have to be smiling that we would even be considering something like this. We're the United States of America. We have the greatest fighting force in the world, and I don't know how this reconciles with that. I get recruiting people, but this reminds me a little bit of our first story. You got to toughen up a bit here. I mean, we're the U.S., and if we don't have these standards, we're going to go with a Krispy Kreme policy, who went public today, versus a fitness policy, then we're going to suffer the consequences. So I hope they revisit this.
Greg?
Well, here's the deal. If they got on the phone with the other countries and they all agreed to lower the standards, then yeah, it's like, look, you know what? Our country's getting really fat. It's all those carbs and video games and Putin's going, same here. We got the same.
Yeah, we've seen you guys too.
Yeah, it's like, why don't we all just agree? But you have to wonder in the future how important is physical stamina. I get what Joey's talking about. If you're in a tactical unit, like if you're in the SEALs, right? You got to be fit like me.
Yeah.
But if you are a pilot, you could probably be like Jesse, which is out of shape.
Yes.
Just because you're tall,
yes.
You can hide your fat. But I mean, think about are we going to have the same kind of wars that we were used to seeing when we were growing up? Now that you have drones and maybe you have specialized groups like SEALs who we go in and we do these, what do you call, pinprick attacks, and is it gonna? I mean, I cannot.
This isn't for infantry. This is just for the Air Force.
This is the thing, though. I imagine that are we past that at this point, where we're going to be using robotic devices?
Greg, if Canada catches a bad idea and starts coming south, we're going to need infantry on the Canadian border.
That is true.
I think they should actually consider just having everybody do 30 minutes intervals on arms with Cody Rigsby on Peloton and see how they do, and that could be the test.
But look at what they want to change: a mile and a half run. What were the things again?
Easy.
This is not
a walk or a shuttle run.
Shuttle runs are hard, though.
Is that just sprinting back and forth?
Don't you remember the erasers, the shuttle runs with the erasers in school? Am I that old? I'm sorry.
I remember.
What were they doing with the erasers?
You run. You have to move erasers. You run. You want me to show you?
Yeah, like
Call them
suicides.
lines.
Back
Lines
and
are
forth.
suicide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, like a suicide. I mean,
And what's with the push-up? It's not all the way down. You have to just like lift your arms.
Yeah,
instead?
no, you do like, yeah, those are hard.
yesterday on the show, we watched Chuck Grassley do 20. The guy's 87 years
Yeah.
old. He did 20 plus 4 seconds. I mean, this is.
And also the problem when there's a pilot shortage because they're not coming out of the Air Force.
Well, they don't want to work for American.
Oops. How un-American.
But I went to, so Leif Babbitt and Jenna Lee got married, and Leif was retiring from the Navy SEALs, and so all of his SEAL team members were at the wedding, and except for Jocko Willink, who looked like he was cast as a Navy SEAL, all of them were super skinny. And you had no idea, and it's because they have to be able to do a dead man carry out of battle.
They were
You have
hiding
to be
their
able-
fat. They were tall and skinny and hiding their fat. Apparently, that's what it is.
You have to be able to pick up another person and carry them.
I
Which
can pick
know-
up Gutfeld pretty easily.
I've been carrying this show forever.
Oh.
Count it.
Yes, you have. On that note, boom. Up next, Britney Spears' battle to.
Britney Spears' battle for freedom hitting a major roadblock. A judge has denied the singer's request to end her father's control over her $60 million estate. That's despite the pop star's very dramatic testimony last week, where Spears said she wasn't allowed to get married or have a baby and was forced to take medications. Britney's attorney was expected to file a petition to end the conservatorship, but for some reason, her lawyer has yet to do that. So we've got some opinions around this thing. Let me go with Jesse first, and then I'm going to bring it back to you, Dagan, here one moment, because I can feel your words coming out already.
No, steam heat is what you're feeling. Go ahead.
What? The reason that the court-appointed lawyer has not filed a petition to end this is because they are a court-appointed lawyer who's making more money representing Britney than they ever thought they would make. And it's in the financial interest of this court-appointed lawyer, not a high-priced attorney, to drag this out as long as possible. From my understanding of this case, the reason the judge denied it is because the court-appointed lawyer botched the paperwork and was late with everything, and they still haven't filed the right paperwork. So that's that. If Britney were broke, this would not be happening. You have homeless people in LA in camps. You can't get a conservatorship. You can't institutionalize them. You institutionalize her because she's a money machine. This is not designed, a conservatorship, for people at that age and people that wealthy. It is designed for people at the way end of their lives that can't manage their affairs, can't manage themselves. They're bathing, their teeth brushing, those kinds of things. She's clearly not incapacitated. You heard her read very proficiently. She's performing at a very high level, feeding, paying dozens of people. And this goes on. And I do feel bad for her. Hashtag free Britney.
Greg, Dagan's ready. But I need you to jump in here for a moment before I turn it
Well,
over.
I mean, in 24 hours, Bill Cosby is free, but Britney Spears isn't. We'll be right back. Two words you never want to hear before another word: court-appointed.
Right.
Court-appointed lawyer.
Not
Court-appointed sandwich. Court-appointed underwear. It's never good. It's never good. It's always the low thing. Look, here, I'm struggling right now to care deeply about her because I also do feel that she's in better shape than most people. But people have asked me, do I regret not having kids? And as you know, I hate children. So but in this case,
You love Jesse Jr.
I do love Jesse Jr. from afar, but I would have liked to have a child if it became a pop star so I could sponge off it, right? I want a child who could buy me a house or two, but other than that, I don't know. Where's her mom? Where is her mom? Do we hear about her mom? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that weird?
I don't know where the mom is.
Neither do
I'll
I.
have to talk to my Britney sources about that.
Yes.
Dana?
Well, so one thing that has bothered me this whole time is that the dad's lawyer keeps saying at any time she wants to end this, she can file a petition to end the conservatorship, and she's never actually filed that petition. So I kept saying, well, why not just do that, and why do we have to keep going through this? Well, then there's another piece, pull the string, that says the court-appointed lawyer didn't tell her that she could file that, and if that's true, then obviously that's wrong. So this was denied in this particular hearing, but that's because the petition to end it has not been filed. There is another bite at this apple on July 14th, so I think I think that this is wrapping up. This is coming to an end, and I think that you will get your wish. Hashtag Free Britney.
Good.
Dagan, you had some interesting points about how Britney, just her life and how it's been managed. What's your reaction to what's been said in the story in of itself?
No one knows this. No one knows what the judge has seen over the years, judges. No one knows what the conservators have seen. So there are a lot of people talking, and that was my issue when we talked about it last week, was the New York Times, what blew this open was this documentary that they did. And they interviewed Britney fans on Instagram, but they didn't talk to any psychiatrists. Now, I understand psychiatrists don't want to be on the record about what's going on, but there's something very profound that's been happening with this young woman, talented, with her mental health and with other issues, potentially dual diagnosis, mental illness and drug and alcohol addiction. I throw that out there, number one. Bessemer Trust, which is the co-conservator of the finances, according to TMZ, has filed to drop out of the conservatorship. It doesn't want to be associated with this anymore.
Yep.
Her personal conservator has said that there are no marriage or baby restrictions. Responding to the father who's now speaking out. So, and that is true in a conservatorship. There are no restrictions on you getting married or having children. So again, that raises the issue of, was Britney telling the full truth when she spoke in front of the court? And I will end with this. I think the conservatorship does come to an end, and rather rapidly. And I know this for one reason, because now Elizabeth Warren is weighing in on the issue of conservatorships. And she is the cousin Oliver showing up on the Brady Bunch. This show is over.
Maybe she'll organize a powwow.
Oh. Would you grant me one thing, though?
Yes.
Would you grant me she's a naive country girl that maybe is not sophisticated, and perhaps more sophisticated lawyers on both sides are preying on her carcass for cash? Would you grant me that as a possibility?
I think that this conservatorship has gone on an incredibly long time, and there are many troubling aspects to it. The biggest one is that Britney's money is actually going to pay not just her lawyer, but her father's attorneys. And we are talking about, over the years, probably millions of dollars that she's paid for her own dad's attorneys.
So you would grant me that you could trap this woman in some sort of psychological dungeon, and that's a possibility.
Jesse, she's in Hawaii. She's not in a dungeon.
No, but she's also getting therapists like 3 days a week.
You said it best from the outset. If she had $60, we wouldn't be doing this right here, right now. So the fastest, up next. Britney Spears' battle for freedom hitting a major roadblock. A judge has denied the singer's request to end her father's control over her $60 million estate. That's despite the pop star's very dramatic testimony last week, where Spears said she wasn't allowed to get married or have a baby and was forced to take medications. Britney's attorney was expected to file a petition to end the conservatorship, but for some reason, her lawyer has yet to do that. So we've got some opinions around this thing. Let me go with Jesse first, and then I'm going to bring it back to you, Dagan, here one moment, because I can feel your words coming out already.
Steam heat is what you're feeling. Go ahead.
The reason that the court-appointed lawyer has not filed a petition to end this is because they are a court-appointed lawyer who's making more money representing Britney than they ever thought they would make. And it's in the financial interest of this court-appointed lawyer, not a high-priced attorney, to drag this out as long as possible. From my understanding of this case, the reason the judge denied it is because the court-appointed lawyer botched the paperwork and was late with everything, and they still haven't filed the right paperwork. So that's that. If Britney were broke, this would not be happening. You have homeless people in L.A. in camps. You can't get a conservatorship. You can't institutionalize them. You institutionalize her because she's a money machine. This is not designed, a conservatorship, for people at that age and people that wealthy. It is designed for people at the way end of their lives that can't manage their affairs, can't manage themselves. They're bathing, they're teeth brushing, those kinds of things. She's clearly not incapacitated. You heard her read very proficiently. She's performing at a very high level, feeding, paying dozens of people. And this goes on, and I do feel bad for her. Hashtag Free Britney.
Greg, Dagan's ready. But I need you to jump in here for a moment before I turn it over.
Well, I mean, in 24 hours, Bill Cosby is free, but Britney Spears isn't. We'll be right back.
Hashtag.
Two words you never want to hear before another word, court-appointed.
Right.
Court-appointed lawyer,
Not
court-appointed sandwich, court-appointed underwear. It's never good. It's never good. It's always the low thing. Look, here, I'm struggling right now to care deeply about her because I also do feel that she's in better shape than most people. But people have asked me, do I regret not having kids? And as you know, I hate children. So but in this case,
You love Jesse Jr.
I do love Jesse Jr. from afar, but I would have liked to have a child if it became a pop star so I could sponge off it, right? I want a child who could buy me a house or two, but other than that, I don't know. Where's her mom? Where is her mom? Do we hear about her mom? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that weird?
I don't know where the mom is.
Neither do
I'll
I.
have to talk to my Britney sources about that.
Yes.
Dana?
Well, so one thing that has bothered me this whole time is that the dad's lawyer keeps saying at any time she wants to end this, she can file a petition to end the conservatorship, and she's never actually filed that petition. So I kept saying, well, why not just do that, and why do we have to keep going through this? Well, then there's another piece, pull the string, that says the court-appointed lawyer didn't tell her that she could file that, and if that's true, then obviously that's wrong. So this was denied in this particular hearing, but that's because the petition to end it has not been filed. There is another bite at this apple on July 14th. So I think that this is wrapping up. This is coming to an end, and I think that you will get your wish. Hashtag Free Britney.
Good.
Dagan, you had some interesting points about how Britney, just her life and how it's been managed. What's your reaction to what's been said in the story in of itself?
No one knows.